The topic of discussion is biomechanics of thorax. Here we have tried to give all the animated pictures of kinematics of complete thoracic movement. Thorax, which is also known as rib cage. It is made up of thoracic vertebrae, ribs and sternum. If you look at the borders of the thorax, the anterior border which is formed by the sternum, lateral border formed by the ribs, posterior border is formed by the thoracic vertebrae. If you look at the superior portion of the thorax, the superior border which is made up of jugular notch of sternum, superior border of first costal cartilage, first rib and first thoracic vertebrae. If you look at the inferior border which is made up of xiphoid process, costal cartilage 7 to 10, 11th and 12th ribs, inferior portion and 12 thoracic vertebrae. Thorax, which has several important functions. The first, if we look at the which provides the base of the muscles attachment of upper extremity, head and trunk, vertebral column and pelvis. The second most important function for thorax is it provides the protection for heart, lungs and viscera. For that it requires the inherent stability. Inherent stability by means of structure of the rib cage significantly increase the stability of thoracic spine, inflection, extension, lateral bending and rotation. The third and most important function for the thorax is its role in a ventilation. This process of ventilation depends on the mobility of the bony rib of thorax and the ability of the muscles of ventilation to move the thorax. Now we will discuss the general structure and function of the rib cage. First we will discuss the sternum. Sternum is an osseous protective plate for heart and it is composed of manubrium, body and xiphoid process as you can see in the picture. The manubrium and the body of the sternum form a dorsally concave angle of approximately 160 degree. Xiphoid process often angle dorsally from the body of sternum but it is difficult to palpate. Now if we look at the thoracic vertebrae, there are total 12 number of thoracic vertebrae which make the posterior aspect of rib cage. The unique feature of thoracic vertebrae is it's the vertebral body and transverse process which has a 6 costal articulating surface, 4 on body, that is superior costal facet, inferior costal facet on each side. This facet also known as demifacet and 1 costal facet on each transverse process. So this is how there are total 6 costal articulating surface. Now we'll talk about the ribs. The ribs are curved flat bone that gradually increase in length from rib 1 to 7th rib. Then it decreases in length again from rib 8 to 12. Posteriorly located head of each rib articulate with the contiguous thoracic vertebral body. Like an example, first rib will articulate with T1. Now if we talk about costal tubercle of rib 1 to 10, it also articulate with the transverse process of thoracic vertebrae. The anteriorly ribs of 1 to 10 are joined either directly or indirectly to the sternum through costal cartilage. Now if you look at the figure, the rib 1 to 7 are classified as a vertebrosternal or true ribs because each ribs through its costal cartilage attached directly to the sternum. Now if you look at the second figure, the costal cartilage of rib 8 to 10 articulate with costal cartilage of superior rib and indirectly articulate with the sternum via 7th rib. That's why it's also known as vertebrocondyle rib or false rib. 11th and 12th ribs are also called as floating rib as they do not have an anterior attachment to the sternum. Now we'll discuss the articulation of rib cage. Rib cage has a total 7 articulation. We'll discuss each in detail. The first, that is manubriosternal joint. It is made up of manubrium and the body of sternum. It is also known as sternal angle or angle of Lewis. It is readily palpable as a horizontal ridge at the level of second ribs at its anterior attachment. Mandibulosternum joint is a type of synchondrosis joint. Synchondrosis means a type of cartilaginous joint in which the cartilage is usually converted into a bone in adult life. In mandibulosternal joint, there is a fibrocartilaginous disc between hyaline cartilage. It covers the articulating ends of manubrium and body of sternum. Now second joint, that is xiphisternum joint, which is made up of xiphoid process and inferior aspect of the sternal body. Okay, and it is also synchondrosis joint. Now the most important, that is costovertebral joint and costotransverse joint. Already we have discussed the thoracic vertebrae has a unique feature of 6 articulation. This 6 articulation will be here. The 4 articulation in costovertebral joint and 2 articulation in costotransverse joint, that is on each side. Now we talk about the costovertebral joint. It's a synovial joint. The unique characteristic of synovial joint, that is it has a synovial fluid which provides the role in mobility. This costovertebral joint is formed by the head of the ribs and 2 adjacent vertebral body and interposed intervertebral disc. Now ribs 2 through 9 have a typical costovertebral joint. Now each rib's superior facet articulate with inferior facets of vertebrae above it, and inferior facet of each rib articulate with the superior facets of its own vertebrae. Like an example, fourth rib superior facet articulate with the inferior facet of third thoracic vertebrae, and its inferior facet of rib articulate with the superior facet of fourth thoracic vertebrae. Now ribs 1, 10, 11 and 12. This 4 joint is also known as atypical ribs. They are known as atypical ribs because they articulate with the only one vertebral body, that is same number, like T1 articulate with the first thoracic vertebrae. Now typical costovertebral joint is divided into 2 cavity by intra-articular ligament. Another ligament which supports the costovertebral joint, that is radial ligament. It has a 3 bands. Now atypical costovertebral joint of ribs 1, 10, 11 and 12 are more mobile than the other as it articulates with only one vertebrae. Both rotation and gliding motion possible at the all costovertebral joint. Now if we talk about the costotransverse joint, it is also synovial joint. It is formed by the articulation of the costal tubercle of ribs with the costal facet on transverse process of corresponding vertebrae. Total 10 pairs of costotransverse joint from T1 through T10 with the ribs of same number. The importance of costotransverse joint, that is on T1 through T6, it's a slightly concave costal facet on transverse process of vertebrae and slightly convex costal tubercle on corresponding ribs. Thus allows the slightly rotation movement between the segment, that is about the T1 to T6. Now costotransverse joint from T7 through T10, both articular surface are flat and which provide the gliding motion. Now rib 11 to 12 do not articulate with their transverse process, their respective transverse process. Costotransverse joint has a thin fibrous capsule and it has a 3 major ligament which support the capsule, that is lateral costotransverse ligament and superior costotransverse ligament. Now the 5th joint, that is costochondral joint. It is made up of articulation of the rib 1 through 10th rib at anterolaterally with the costal cartilage. It is also synchondrosis joint and it doesn't have any ligamental support. The periosteum and perichondrium are continuously giving support to the joint. Now the chondrosternal joint. It is the articulation of costal cartilage of ribs 1 through 7 anteriorly with the sternum. Rib 1, it articulates with the lateral facet on manubrium rib 2, that is 2 demi-faceted the manubriosternal joint, and rib 3 to 7 lateral aspect of the sternal body. Now the chondrosternal joint of the ribs 1, 6 and 7, that is synchrondosis, and the ribs 2 through 5, it is a synovial joint. Chondrosternal joints of the ribs 1 to 7 have a capsule that continues with the periosteum and supports the connection of cartilage as a whole. The ligament support, that is anterior and posterior radiate costosternal ligament, sternocostal ligament which is intra-articular, and costoxiphoid ligament connects the anterior posterior surface of 7th costal cartilage front and back. The xiphoid process. Now interchondral joint, it's a costal cartilage of rib to 10th, each articulate with the cartilage immediately above them to form the interchondral joint, and it's indirectly attached to a sternum. Interchondral joints are synovial joint and supported by the capsule and interchondral ligament, and it becomes fibrous and fused with the age. Now we'll discuss the kinematics of ribs and manubrium. The movement of rib cage is an amazing combination of complex geometrics which is governed by three things. The first, the types and angle of articulation, movement of manubriosternal joint, and elasticity of costal cartilage. Now if we talk about the first rib, it is a anticular articulate which is larger and thicker than the other rib. The first costal cartilage is stiffer than other costal cartilage, and also the first costosternal joint is a cartilaginous, not an synovial. Therefore, it is firmly attached to the manubrium. And one more important function, the first costosternal joint is just inferior and posterior to sternoclavicular joint. For this all reason, there is a very little movement over a first rib and its anterior aspect at the costosternal joint. If we talk about the posteriorly, the costovertebral joint of the first rib has a single facet which increases the mobility at that joint. During inspiration, the costovertebral joint moves superiorly and posteriorly, and it elevates the first rib. Now the most important part, axis of rotation for upper and lower ribs. According to most accepted theory, there is a single axis of motion for the first to 10th ribs through the center of costovertebral and costotransverse joint, as you can see in middle figure. This axis for the upper ribs lies close to the frontal plane, which means it allows the thoracic movement predominantly in sagittal plane. This is very important. And the axis of motion for the lower ribs lies near the sagittal plane, allowing the motion predominantly in frontal plane. The axis of motion for the 11th and 12th rib passes through costovertebral joint only, as there is a no costotransverse joint over 11th and 12th rib. The axis of motion for these last two ribs also lies close to a frontal plane. Now most important, pump handle movement. During inspiration, as we all know, ribs are elevates, but how, that we'll discuss. In the upper ribs, most of the movement occurs at the anterior aspect of the rib, given nearly the frontal axis at the vertebrae. The movement of the ribs pushes the sternum ventrally and superiorly, but the excursion of the manubrium is less because of the body of sternum and first rib. The motion of the upper ribs and sternum has its greatest effect by increasing anterior-posterior diameter of thorax, as you can see in the lateral view and at the right side corner figure. This combined motion of rib and sternum, which occurs predominantly in sagittal plane, is termed as pump handle motion of the thorax. Bucket handle movement. The elevation of lower ribs occurs about the axis of motion near to the sagittal plane. The lower ribs has more obliquely sloped angle from rib 1 to 10, and it has indirect attachment to anteriorly to the sternum. These two factors allow the lower ribs to move towards lateral aspect of thorax. The elevation of lower ribs has a greatest effect by increasing transverse diameter of lower thorax, as you can see in anterior view as well as in the right side corner. It increases the transverse diameter of thorax, which occurs predominantly in frontal plane, and this motion known as bucket handle movement. There is a gradual shift in the orientation of the axis of motion from superiorly to inferiorly. Therefore, the intermediate ribs demonstrate qualities of both the type of motion, that is pump handle and bucket handle. The 11th and 12th rib, each rib have only one posterior articulation with single vertebrae, and that's why, and it doesn't have any articulation at the anterior aspect, and therefore they do not participate in close chain motion of thorax. Muscles associated with rib cage. The muscles that act on the rib cage are generally referred as ventilatory muscles. The ventilatory muscles are striated skeletal muscles that are differ from other skeletal muscles in 5 ways. The first, it has increased fatigue resistance and greater oxidative capacity. Second, it contracts rhythmically throughout the life. The third, work primarily against the elastic properties of lung and airway resistance rather than against the gravitational force. So this is very important. Whenever you take an MMT, you are supposed to take PI max and PE max to assess the strength of the ventilatory muscles. You are not supposed to do against resistance force for ventilatory muscles specific to diaphragm. Now fourth important aspect, it's a neurological control. We can control both voluntarily and involuntary. And fifth, that is action of these muscles are life sustaining. Ventilatory muscles are most accurately classified in either primary or accessory muscles of ventilation. If we talk about the primary muscles of ventilation, then this includes diaphragm, intercostal muscles, in that specific parasternal muscles and scalene muscles. There are no primary muscles of expiration, as in quiet expiration there is a passive process, so no muscles required in expiration. Now if we talk about the main primary muscle, that is diaphragm, it is accounting for approximately 70 to 80% of inspiratory force during quiet breathing. Diaphragm is a circular set of muscle fiber that arises from sternum, costal cartilage, ribs and vertebral body. The fiber which travels superiorly and it inserts into a central tendon. It's a unique feature of diaphragm as it doesn't have any bony insertion. The functionally the diaphragm divides into two, costal portion and crural portion. The costal portion of the diaphragm attaches from muscular slips to the posterior aspect of xiphoid process, inner surface of lower ribs and their costal cartilage. The costal fiber of diaphragm runs vertically from their origin in close opposition to the rib cage and then curve to become more horizontal before inserting into central tendon. The vertical fibers of diaphragm, which is close to the inner wall of lower rib cage, it is also known as zone of apposition. The crural portion of the diaphragm arises from the anterolateral surface of the body of the disc of L1, L2 and L3 vertebrae and from the epineurostic arcuate ligament. Now this is important. During tidal volume breathing, the fibers of the zone of apposition of the diaphragm contracts, causing the descent of diaphragm, but there is only slight change in the dome. As the dome descends, the abdominal content compresses, it increasing the intra-abdominal pressure. With deeper breathing, the abdomen now compressed and acts to stabilize the central tendon of diaphragm. With the continued contraction, the costal fiber of diaphragm against the central tendon that is stabilized by the abdominal pressure, the lower rib is now lifted and moves outwardly in bucket handle motion. As the diaphragm reaches at the end of contraction, the fibers become more horizontally aligned and the further contraction no longer lifts the lower rib cage. The function of the crural fiber of the diaphragm is its indirectly action of the crural portion of results in descent of central tendon and increasing intra-abdominal pressure. This increased pressure is transmitted across the opposed diaphragm, which helps to expand the lower rib cage. The thoracoabdominal movement during quiet inspiration is a result of the pressure that is generated by the contraction of diaphragm. When the diaphragm contracts, central tendon descends and the increased abdominal pressure which causes the abdominal contents to displaced anteriorly and laterally. Resultant increase the thoracic size with descent of diaphragm result in decreased intrapulmonary pressure, and that is responsible for inspiration. Examination shows the decrease in thoracic size as the diaphragm returns to its dome shape and abdominal content returns to their starting position. Now we'll talk about intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles are external and internal intercostal muscles. However, the only parasternal muscles are considered as a primary muscles of ventilation. The parasternal muscle is a portion of internal intercostal adjacent to a sternum. The function of intercostal muscle, if we discuss, then the external intercostal muscle are activated during inspiration and internal intercostal muscles are activated during exhalation. Both sets of intercostal muscles may be active during both the phases of respiration as minute ventilation increases. Either set of intercostal muscle can raise the rib cage from low lung or lower rib cage from the high lung volume. The activation of intercostal muscles during ventilatory cycle is from superior to inferior direction, means the recruitment of the fibers begin from higher intercostal space early in inspiration and moves downwards as inspiration progresses. Activation of lower intercostal muscles appears to occur only during deep inspiration. The parasternal muscle, the most anterior portion of internal intercostal muscles, are considered as a primary inspiratory muscles during quiet breathing. The extent of parasternal muscle appears to be a rotation of costosternal junction, resulting in elevation of the ribs and anterior portion of sternum. The primary function, however, appears to stabilize the rib cage. This stabilizing action of parasternal muscle opposes the decreased intrapulmonary pressure which is generated during diaphragmatic contraction, which is preventing a paradoxical or inward movement of upper chest wall during inspiration. The function of the lateral intercostal muscles, that is internal and external intercostal muscles, involves both ventilation and trunk rotation. The lateral intercostal muscles also activate during respiratory cycles, which have relatively small amount of activity in comparison with the parasternal muscle and diaphragm. The major role of lateral intercostal muscle is axial rotation of thorax with contralateral internal and external intercostal muscles. Now if we talk about the scalene muscles, which are also considered as a primary muscle during quiet breathing. The scalene muscles have attachment to transverse process from C3 to C7 and descends to upper borders of the first rib and second rib. Their action lifts the sternum and first two ribs in pump handle motion of upper rib cage. Activity of scalene muscles begin at the onset of inspiration and increases as the inspiration gets closer to total lung capacity. The length tension relation of scalene muscles allows them to generate greater force late into respiratory cycle when the force from the diaphragm is decreasing. The scalene muscle also functions to stabilize the rib cage. The scalene muscles along with the parasternal muscle counteract the paradoxical movement of upper chest caused by the decreased intrapulmonary pressure created by diaphragmatic contraction. Muscles that are attached with the rib cage to the shoulder girdle, head, vertebral column or pelvis may be classified as accessory muscles of ventilation. These muscles assist with the inspiration or expiration in situations of stress such as increased activity or disease. When the trunk is stabilized, the accessory muscles of ventilation moves the vertebral column, arm, head or pelvis on the trunk. During times of increased ventilatory demands, the rib cage can become more mobile segment. The accessory muscles of inspiration therefore increases the thoracic diameter by moving the rib cage in upward and outward direction. The accessory muscles of expiration moves the diaphragm upward and the thorax downward and inward direction. You can see in the figure most common accessory muscles of respiration. We will discuss each muscle in brief. The first, the sternocleidomastoid muscles. With the help of trapezius muscles by stabilizing the head, the bilateral action of sternocleidomastoid muscle moves the rib cage superiorly, which expands the upper rib cage in pump handle motion. The recruitment of these muscle fibers seems towards end of maximal inspiration. The sternocostal portion of pectoralis major muscle can elevate the upper rib cage when the shoulder and humerus are stabilized. The clavicular head of the pectoralis major can either inspiratory or expiratory in action. It depends on the position of upper extremity. If the arm position is with the humeral attachment of pectoralis major is below level of clavicle, then the clavicle portion of the pectoralis major muscle act as a expiratory muscle by pulling the manubrium and upper ribs in downward direction. With the humeral attachment of pectoralis major above the level of clavicle, such as the raised arm, the muscle becomes inspiratory muscle, pulling the manubrium and upper ribs in up and outward direction. The pectoralis minor muscle can elevate the third, fourth and fifth rib during the forced inspiration. The subclavius muscle, which lies between the clavicle and the first rib, also assists in raising the upper chest during inspiration. Posteriorly, the fibers of levator costorum, the serratus posterior superior and serratus posterior inferior. These muscles have a role in elevation of the rib cage. Now, the abdominal muscles that are transverse abdominis, internal obliquus abdominis, external obliquus abdominis and rectus abdominis. These muscles known are mainly for expiratory muscle as well as trunk flexor and rotators. The major function of the abdominal muscles with regards to ventilation is to assist in forced expiration. The muscle fiber pulls the ribs and costal cartilage caudal direction into a motion of exhalation. By increasing intra-abdominal pressure, the abdominal muscle can push the diaphragm upward into a thoracic cage, increasing both volume and speed of exhalation. Although it is considered as the accessory muscles of exhalation, the abdominal muscle also play two significant roles during inspiration also. First, the increased intra-abdominal pressure created by the active abdominal muscles during forced exhalation pushes the diaphragm cranially and exert a passive stretch on costal fibers of diaphragm. These changes prepare the respiratory system for the next inspiration by optimizing the length tension relationship of the muscle fibers of diaphragm. The second important function of abdominal muscle during inspiration is increased abdominal pressure created by lowering of diaphragm in inspiration must be countered by tension in the abdominal musculature. Without sufficient compliance in abdominal muscles, the central tendon of diaphragm cannot be effectively stabilized. So the lateral chest wall expansion occur. That's why during periods of increased ventilatory needs, the increased muscle activity of the abdominal muscle assists in both expiration as well as also in inspiration. Another muscle, transverse thoracic muscle, which is a flat layer muscle which also have a role in the ventilation along with the abdominal muscles to pull the rib cage caudally. So this is all about the biomechanics of thorax. Thank you for listening. Kindly like, share, subscribe and comments for Health Mantra. Thank you.